elves probably don't poop. They probably don't poop. Yeah.
That's too soiling for them. It evaporates. Their metabolism probably just burns it off.
Yeah.
Honestly, would actually that might make sense.
It might make sense. Yeah.
They eat like a piece of bread a week, and they're like, "Well, my metabolism just burned it off.
They
It
eat
just
some
gone."
lembas bread, and they don't have to eat for the rest of the week.
Are we saying here on the podcast that elves don't have buttholes?
That's our thing, huh? Elves don't have buttholes. They don't poop.
You heard it here first.
It's
Elves
official.
do not have buttholes.
You heard it here first on the Infinity Bros podcast. Hello and welcome to the Infinity Bros podcast, the only podcast that's perfectly balanced as all things should be. My name is Isaac Edlin. I am your host tonight. And with me, I have one other Infinity Bro. It is the King of Drip, Robbie Sauter.
Hi. Happy to be here. It feels like every time I get on here, I say it's been forever. But I'm here today. And we're going to record this podcast, and it's going to be awesome.
You've been on the podcast more recently than some other Infinity Bros members, so, it's nothing to turn your nose.
Should we name all the Infinity Bros that...
I don't know. Should we name them? I don't know. No. They know who they are. We don't need to.
People don't know. The people don't know who they are.
Yeah.
Except for Mark. Mark's a fan favorite.
Except for Mark. Mark has been the guy that I've leaned on in the past 6 months. Mark's always ready to do an episode on anything, which is odd because Zane used to be that guy for me. And now he's what happened to him?
He's got a lady friend and things change.
Yep. And
people change.
All of a sudden he's not Mr. Reliable anymore. So
he's just not for the program. Not for the program.
Yep, he's
a me guy. He's a me guy.
He's not playing for the boys anymore. But yeah. Anyways, we've got a few things that we want to talk about today, and I wanted to have Robbie on specifically because we're going to be talking about two things that are right in his wheelhouse: the Penguin show on Max and Rings of Power.
Max is going to be here?
Amazon Prime. No. His I'm talking about his platform.
Oh, the
platform that he runs.
His streaming service.
Yeah.
I get so many emails from him.
I know he really likes to send emails. But yeah, we're going to be talking about those things. But first, if you've never listened to the Infinity Bros before, you might be wondering what the heck is going on with these guys. We're a group of 6 guys who have a podcast, obviously. Do a lot of content creation revolving around pop culture, Marvel, Star Wars, nerd stuff, Magic the Gathering. Robbie does a lot of Magic the Gathering stuff. So if you're looking for some funny videos and just some crazy guys doing shenanigans,
some crazy things,
just two wild and crazy guys.
Couple of wild and crazy guys.
Then check out the Infinity Bros on our socials. You can check us out at theinfinitybros.com to get links to all of those. And you can also check out our backlog of the Infinity Bros podcast, where we review TV, film, video games, whatever is on our minds and our hearts these days. So, and we also have a special rating system that we use on the Infinity Bros podcast.
Here on the Infinity Bros podcast, everything is ranked from a 0 to 6 point scale. 0 meaning horrible, and 6 meaning absolutely excellent. If all of the Infinity Bros rank something a 6, it gets an Infinity Step.
So if you hear us refer to a rating, a number, that's how we do things here. All right, Robbie, you ready to dive into these topics?
Yeah, let's dive on in.
Let's just
jump on
dive.
Into these. Let's dive on into these things.
Just a big old cannonball, right?
Get on in.
Get on. Yeah.
Get on in
there.
There
you go. If you want to hear more bird talk as we get into the Penguin, you can check out our Patreon, where we talk about all of the movies that have come out about birds in the last I don't know,
a lot of geese movies,
a lot of geese movies, duck movies for some reason, and we chat about that, and then we rolled it right into the Penguin. So make sure you check out the Patreon for exclusive Infinity Bros content. All right, so the Penguin is a HBO Max exclusive show. Yeah. Following the events of the Batman Oz Cobb, aka the Penguin, makes a play to seize the reins of the crime world in Gotham.
Why do they
Dropped
call it
this
Oz
year.
Cobb? That's a weird thing to say.
I know that is kind of weird. I looked up the like cast, and that's the first thing that is
Yeah, it
on there
says
is Oz
Oz
Cobb.
Cobb. What in the world?
Like obviously that's short for Oswald
Says
Cobblepot, but the
Oswald
official
Cobblepot.
name is Oz Cobb.
Yeah, I'm with you. I'm looking at that right
It's
now. What are you
yeah,
doing?
I don't
That's weird.
understand that, and I
All right,
didn't
sorry.
really
Sorry to just get you off your
see.
mark there, but
No, no, actually,
that's a silly thing.
that's a good point because you and I both didn't realize that that was his real name until now, until we looked at the cast list. Like it makes sense that these mobsters are calling him Oz because who wants to say
Sure.
Oswald Cobblepot, right?
Yeah, for sure.
Like, but yeah, to find out that that's his official name is like, oh, okay, well,
It's really
I
dumb.
mean, they're definitely taking some like, creative liberties with this Batman universe that
Sure.
they've created or Matt Reeves has created. And most of them are not bad, honestly. I think they're definitely a little bit off the normal Batman path. But
Yeah.
as we'll get into in this show, I think a lot of the changes that they've made are not terrible. They're pretty good narrative choices, at least, if not, comic book accurate or however you want to say
Yeah,
that.
for sure.
But
Sure.
yeah, anyways, this show I believe has 4 episodes out right now, dropping weekly on Sunday nights. And the latest episode that came out, I don't want to spoil anything quite yet. So
That's okay.
what do you
Sure.
think? There's 8 episodes this season. So we're halfway done with this season.
Right.
What have you thought of this season so far, Robbie? Non-spoiler thoughts. What did you think coming into it, and what have you thought about it so far?
My hype around this show wasn't very high. Coming into it, we kind of had an idea that we were going to get some sort of mob show. But anytime you're going to do a show that revolves around a character from a superhero genre, but the superhero isn't the main point or even necessarily a part of the project, I think there's room to be skeptical. So I was very skeptical and I think that was pretty fair for a lot of people. But so far, it's been so far through 4 episodes without getting the spoilers. I would say it's been like a slow burn, but it's like it's a good flame. You know what I'm saying? Like it's nothing too crazy has happened except until this last episode, I suppose. But it's like a really good slow burn. That's just hitting all the right notes, at least for me. Colin Farrell, my goodness.
Yeah.
Colin Farrell and Christine Milote, Sophia Falcone, are just knocking this thing out of the park. It's like they both should be up for Emmys or whatever like TV show people go for if that's the thing, like because they're doing so much work on this and it's been pretty impressive. I'm hooked. I look forward to watching it every week. So it's good. It's definitely good.
I'm 100% with you. I was excited for it because I did like the character of Penguin in the Batman, and I do like that universe. It's kind of like a dark, gritty, almost more like realistic, version of Batman. And yeah, I was excited, but at the same time, like it wasn't like this is on my most anticipated list of 2024 or anything like that. But yeah, through 4 episodes, the show has been fantastic. And I think that was a good description that you had where it's a slow burn, but it's burning bright enough to keep you engaged in it throughout these episodes. And every time at the end of the episode, I'm like, I felt satisfied because they're nice hour-long episodes.
Yes.
You get a good amount of story, and they do still have like a decent enough cliffhanger to be like, oh man, like
gotta come back
I'm
next week.
Actually, I'm excited to watch this next week. And this latest episode, which we'll get into when we get into our spoiler warning, has that one was the one that really was like, oh, this is a good show. This isn't just
this is a good borderline great show, I would even say.
Yeah.
It's building to that. Like they have to stick the landing, but so far, like this is borderline maybe like one of the best shows on television right now.
Agreed. And it's definitely going to be making a push to be on my top 6 TV, which
for sure.
TV is nuts this year. We have so many good shows that
It's
have come
every
out
year.
this
There's
year.
so much there's
Yeah,
so much
but
content to
this
consume.
this show is just, I mean, flat out, it's just good. So it's definitely going to be making a push to be on my top 6 list. So, all right, here is your official spoiler warning for The Penguin.
This is
Prepare yourself.
an Infinity Bros
Prepare yourself.
spoiler warning.
All right, so just diving right into it. This last episode, we had the backstory of Sophia Falcone,
Mm-hmm.
how she came to be the hangman and
Yeah.
went to Arkham, which has been kind of the question this whole show through the first 3 episodes. Like,
Right.
I mean, it's definitely centered around Oz, but she's a very major character through those first 3 episodes, but it kind of has danced around that until episode 4. And man, that was an incredible episode of television. Like, this is definitely the best episode of the season by far to me. And like you said, I mean, episode 4 really put the emphasis on, like, this is a great show, or could be a great show,
Could be a
at
great show.
least. So this episode is a 6 out of 6 for sure. But the whole show, honestly, I'm having a hard time finding things that I don't like about it. Like, there's nothing that I'm like, oh, I didn't like that, or that's turning me off to the show, or anything like that.
Yeah, I'm kind of there with you because, like, the other thing we're going to talk about today is Rings of Power, and Rings of Power. I feel like we kind of talked in the pre-show. Like, there's times where I'm just like, okay, can we get to what we're trying to get to? Like, there's so much like talking and the talking just is just there to fill the time, and it feels like I'm wasting my time. Whereas the Penguin, I feel like if I miss something, I have to go back. Like, I have to like re-listen to it. It's like, that could be important. Like, I feel like there's no wasted dialogue.
Right.
There's the main storyline, and there's a bunch of mini storylines. We have all this stuff going on with Victor, which I think a lot of people assume is going to end badly, and so people are getting, like, people are almost shying. They may be shying away from getting invested into Victor, but it's hard. It's hard not to, because he this kid that Oz believes in for whatever reason, and this kid is like trying to decide, like, he seems like a good person in, like, kind of stuck in this mob world, but has this guy Oswald, or Oz, sorry, Oz, that has him wrapped
Not
up
Oswald,
in it.
just Oz.
Yeah. But then was it episode 3, or was it episode, no, it was episode 3,
Yeah,
where they're in the bathroom, and he's like, puts like a gun to his head, and he's like, is this what it feels like to be with me? And like, and we're all like, yeah. You kill people, like, you backstab people, but that kind of you got that feeling like, okay, Oz might actually care for this kid, but this kid is also just terrified of Oz because he's seen all the bad from him. So it's such an interesting, like, that's an interesting dynamic. Then you have Oz, like, anytime someone makes fun of him, he just snaps. Like, that's where a lot of the story like starts from. He just snaps and kills was it Luca Falcone?
No,
or which one's the brother?
Brother's name? I forget his. Alberto.
Alberto. He kills Alberto. Luca's the one that just died.
He's the uncle. He's the uncle dude. Yeah, right.
Yeah, because he kills Alberto because he starts making fun of him. It's like, so Oz obviously has this very short trigger, so that you're kind of just waiting for people to push that also. But damn, man, episode 4, where we finally get what happened between Sophia and Oz. Like, Oz clearly, backstabbing is a weird word, but like, kind of backstabbing, because in one respect, he's doing his job.
Right.
Like, he is her driver.
Right.
But he's also, like, he works for the Falcone family.
Right.
So like
he ratted her out, but he didn't know what her dad was gonna do. Like, I doubt he thought that he was gonna, frame her for all of the murders and put her in Arkham. Like, he definitely, if he had known that, maybe he wouldn't have made that choice. Like, he kind of, I think it was in episode 3 at the end of the episode when they're talking, and gosh, I'm trying to remember what scene that was, but like I
Was
think
it
it was when they're at the
when that
club.
lady shows up?
No, I think it was when they're at the club and Sophia was like talking to Oz about like or maybe it was after the club. I don't remember. But anyways,
I think it's when they
Oz
were
was
outside right before that lady showed up, and then
right. Yeah, okay, yep,
yeah,
you're right. So like Sophia was like, "Well, I mean, you kind of screwed me over." And Oz was like, "Yeah, I did, but like I mean, I
I
still
didn't know what
care
was
for
gonna happen.
you."
Yeah,
Yeah, right. Like I didn't know it was going to happen. Like you can kind of see that he definitely does have like a I don't know, allegiance or like an affinity towards her. But then in the next scene, he just literally leaves her to presumably die.
right.
So
Which we
it's like,
got input on why he did that,
yeah,
right? Because
right.
like once
So
we get to episode 4, it starts with that like, oh,
yeah,
this lady just told Sophia that Oz killed
yeah,
Alberto,
right.
and that's why he's like, get the f out of here because she's gonna murder me
Yeah.
now. Like
Yeah.
both of these chicks want to murder me at this point.
Mhm. That and episode 4 is such an interesting episode because up until this point, this show is about Oz. And
Yeah,
at after episode 4, you're like, is it still about him? Like
it's
it
like
kind of
it's
seems
almost
like
it's
it's
two
about
main
Sophia
characters at
now.
this point. Yeah,
Right.
it's a
Yeah, and it was a big turning point. Obviously at the end of the episode we get the huge like she kills everybody in the family except for the Johnny VD or whatever and is probably going to kill him too, but she probably
and
has like some
her cousin or
business to
whatever, her
do.
little cousin.
Yeah, like she probably has to like make him like transfer all their like family
Yep,
stuff
she
to
got to keep
her or
him
something
alive.
like that. You got to keep him alive for a little bit. And then I mean, I'm assuming we're going to get some kind of reunion between Oz and Sophia. And I'm guessing it's because Sophia even mentioned in episode 2 or 3 that like Oz has the connections, like he knows people. And
Yep.
I'm guessing that's why Sophia's still going to need him, even though he just like totally betrayed
Well,
her.
that's
And
Oz's whole thing, right? Like Oz knows
right.
how to work people. He
Hmm.
Oz's best thing he can do is make himself valuable.
Right.
So he has to make himself valuable to Sophia, so she can't just often kill him as much as she would want. And he
Exactly.
probably
Yeah.
has to. He probably also has to play the like, you say you're not a murderer, but you're gonna murder me card. You know, like
Yeah.
that kind
Right.
of thing. Like
Well,
you're
and
saying
the
you're
fact that
innocent, but
she just murdered her whole like the whole Falcone family, so she just doesn't have that many people on her
well,
side.
let's also
She
dive into
needs
why
people.
she like. Let's dive into like why she did that though. Like right,
Yeah.
like it's an
Right.
easy thing for her to say. Oh, she just killed everyone. It's like, well, she killed everyone because with that thing
Because
with her father.
yeah,
Because
they all
they
literally
all
knew
wrote.
that she was not the actual
Well, yeah,
murderer of all those
they all
women,
wrote
and
the
they all
letters. They all
yeah.
let me talk, Isaac.
Sorry, just so
God.
excited about this show.
So no, so her father has them all write letters saying that she did this or was here on this moment, like giving all this information, getting her sent to effing Arkham, where the doctor's basically trying to get her to admit that she's crazy and drive her crazy, and to the point there she does go crazy.
Mhm.
And that the whole Arkham scene, that was intense. I was not expecting, even for an HBO show, to go as deep as they did into the mental health side of this,
Mhm.
and not in a good way, in a very traumatic like way that's
Yeah,
probably somewhat real for some people. Not anymore. Usually most mental hospitals like that are well maintained now, but back in the day that used
and a
to
lot
kind
of
of
them
be a
just don't
nightmare place.
exist anymore. Like
Right. Yeah,
insane asylums, as they say.
they
Like
used to
that's
be kind of like how where she is.
yeah, right.
Um and it's not honestly, and if you've ever looked at any of the stories from an insane asylum, what they did to Sophia is mild,
Yeah,
which is just crazy.
yeah,
But it's a very real thing that they did to her, and she did such a good job portraying that kind of like slow psychotic break
right,
to eventually just be like, oh, you want me to be the hangman? I'll be the effing hangman, even though I've never
right.
killed anyone. Like, she was just very innocent girl before being framed for this.
Yeah.
She's
And
just a girl
the
that wanted to
framing
know
part is
what happened to her
wild
mom.
too. Like, we get in the beginning of that episode, like, kind of her backstory, like before all this went down. And she like
Yeah,
was in line to literally be the head of the family.
yeah. Her
And then
dad
all of a
liked her more
sudden,
than Alberto.
exactly. And then all of a sudden her dad was just like, boom, you're going to Arkham, and he set up this elaborate, plan to frame her for these murders. And,
Yep.
Obviously there's probably an element of like, dude, like is probably the Arkham like doctor, the head guy or whatever. He probably knows that she's innocent, and he's
Yep.
basically making her
He's being paid.
feel
Yeah.
like she's, psychotic or whatever, and making her break, like you said, basically. And like you said, it is a super intense uh scene, or multiple scenes in there of
Multiples, yeah.
her, going through all of that. But like, man, the devastation that, her dad, who trusted her, just all of a sudden up and like boom, just because he was going to go down for all of this.
Right.
Man, wild. That was a wild twist. And
It was
that,
rough.
yeah, it was rough to watch, dude. And she, the actress Kristen Milotti, wow, she was fantastic in this episode, and has been the whole show. But yeah,
Really got to show her stuff in this episode, and you're
Yeah.
like, because she's just kind of she's been around, she's been very involved in the series,
mhm,
but it's just been bits and pieces. You get her with Oz and kind of working behind the scenes kind of thing. But this episode was entirely about her and her story.
yeah,
And yeah, golly, and then then we get to back to her house, and she puts on the yellow dress or whatever. She
mhm.
goes to the dinner with the whole family, and she's obviously not welcome there. As the kids would say, she had very strong aura. A
Yeah,
100 aura moments, or whatever the children are saying nowadays.
yeah.
But
You fit
just
right in with
sitting at
them,
the
Robbie.
table, and
You could
I
tell.
know, and just doing her little speech to the family.
Mhm.
Like, my favorite part was when frick uh Michael Kelly's character Johnny Vitti like tries to stop her, and she just
Yeah,
goes, "Go on." like
yeah,
like say
yeah.
something. Like,
Say
I was like,
something.
"Oh
I
my
dare
god."
you.
No, I'll be quiet.
Yeah, all of them know too. You can tell that scene is a great scene, because you can tell that they all feel just like crap, because they know what they did to her was
Yeah.
awful. But at the same time, like, they all don't want to give up anything that they have and they don't want to stick their necks out for her, because then they're going to be, in the
You know
same
what?
position that
Yeah.
she's in. They're going to be
You know what
disowned
the
from the
you know what the
family.
interesting thing I just thought of is that we've seen a lot of her family members be scared of her, like,
Yeah,
throughout the series so far. But
that's so sad.
we all assume that they were scared of her because she was the hangman and she did all these
Mhm.
terrible things. Like, no, they're all scared of her because they know what they did to her.
Exactly. Yeah.
Like,
Right.
she, and
And they
she
don't
knows
know.
what they
Right.
did.
They don't know if
Like,
she's like vengeful towards them. They
right.
don't know. They don't know. They don't know
Right.
anything,
They're scared of her
because
for a completely different reason than
yeah.
us, the audience, thinks, which is
Mhm.
a really, really cool twist on, if you go back and watch all those scenes where they're all
Yeah.
kind of like on edge with her.
I mean, man, I've been talking about this with Mark in the last couple episodes of the podcast too. So like, months ago, we had the premiere of The Acolyte, which is the Star Wars show that like was built itself up as this murder mystery and blah 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 and all
Yeah.
this stuff, and it really just fell flat on its
Trash.
face. And we've had shows like this show specifically, and that have just come out and done that murder mystery thing so much better, even though
Yeah.
they haven't. And Agatha honestly is another
It's doing great. Yeah.
like example of that. Like, they have that mystery aspect. They're saving some of that, like, excitement for the end, and they don't
Mhm.
reveal everything right away. Whereas that Acolyte show, just like, man, they came out like trying so hard to be this murder mystery thing, and it was just like,
It was
man,
just so
this is
telegraphed.
it's yeah. But this show is just this is a perfect script for what you want in an intense show where, I mean, everybody's just glued to the screen, and we
Yep.
want to know what's happening
Plus, like,
next.
you
So
get the murder mystery, you get the mob aspect, like, you get the idea, like, like all the mental health trauma too, that, like, what's his name,
yeah,
like, Victor's going through, like,
yep,
when he's in the club, and like then he just starts, having
yeah,
PTSD. Like, there's
right,
a lot of really, like, good stuff that they're hitting on. And
mhm,
like, it's just, it's a lot of it's even just minor things, but they're hitting on it so well. They're like, oh, that was an impactful scene. Like,
yeah,
I didn't expect that. Like I thought he was just gonna walk around with drugs. Like no, he's freaking having PTSD and
Yeah,
like going
having a
crazy out there.
panic attack, and
Yeah,
right.
on the
It's
dance
good
floor.
stuff. Yeah,
Panic and dance on the dance floor. I want to mention one thing
Panic at the
before
Disco.
we
Yeah.
before yeah. Boom. Mention one thing before we move on. IGN. Do you know what score IGN gave the first 4 episodes?
Probably like a 4 because they're dumb.
They give it a
What'd they give
5. They give it a 5.
Like
Eric Adams.
I know that they're gonna give it a bad score because
It's
I know
just
how
wild.
bad IGN is, but it still shocks me when I
It
see that. I'm like,
is wild to
what?
me. Here's what it
How?
says. Here's
How?
just the quick write up. It's like one sentence. The Penguin puts Colin Farrell back in the Batman's transformative makeup, but it fails to build a compelling mob drama around him. Okay,
What?
Eric Adams of IGN, way to be
What?
edgy.
Oh, they all are all
They're
about
very
the
edgy.
edginess.
They're all
over
about
there.
the edgelords. Yeah, and that's I
So
honestly
dumb.
sometimes I wonder if it's planned because they're like, oh, this is a good show.
Oh.
If we say it's not that great,
100%.
maybe people will
100%.
keep coming back to our website, like I am doing right now.
I feel like they do that for sure on like movies and TV. The video games, because it's IGN and they're technically like a gaming, like, media conglomeration or whatever. I feel like the video games, they don't do that quite as often, or they like they soften
Yeah.
the, edginess for the video games. But like TV and movies, they're just like, yeah, let's just throw a horrible score out there so you can get as many people clicking on our page as possible. I firmly believe that they do that on purpose.
It's
Because
just like
a
some of
5?
the
Are you kidding me? Like,
dude,
there's
some of the, and I'm just reading.
top-tier
I'm
acting.
dude.
Everything about this show is like even just if you don't even consider the story at all, production wise, there's
good.
nothing wrong with this show. Like it's a
acting
great
wise,
looking
it's all good.
show. Yeah,
I'm just reading. I'm reading through. I'm just glossing through it, but like one of the headlines: "The Penguin is a mess, but sometimes it's an entertaining mess." The last line. Let me get back to where it started. Where was it? Oh, I'm down here. Let's scroll down. The Penguin lacks the chops, the wit, and the wings to reach those heights to make it like a good show, which I just don't. I don't get.
okay.
Everyone I've talked to that has actually watched The Penguin
Watched it.
enjoys it, except for the only people that I've heard don't like it are the people who are like, oh, it's a Penguin, where's Batman? Shut up.
Yeah, right.
Shut
Okay,
up.
so
Because you're the same person. You're the same person that goes, why do we have so many Batman movies? Like,
yeah,
shut
right.
up.
The same exact person too. That's the wild part.
Golly.
Okay, but here's the audience scores on IMDb for these episodes. Episode 1 is an 8.8 out of 10. Episode
Huge
2
score on IMDb.
is an 8.5. Episode 3 is a 9.1. And episode 4 is a 9.5. IGN is completely talking out of their butts.
Well,
like,
I heard that a 9.5 for a TV show is up there with some of the highest shows.
Yeah, it's
ever.
insane. Like that probably will come down when more people start rating it. But it's 11.
Maybe.
It's at 11,000 right now.
Yeah.
Like that's a lot. So like it's one of the highest rated episodes of television.
Episode 1
right
is
now.
only at 16K. Like it's not gonna go. It's not gonna get swayed that much.
Yeah,
like, it's staying above a 9, man. Like,
it's insane that IGN is that harsh on it. Like, yeah, if you give it a 7 and if it's just not for you, that's fine. Like, whatever.
What does Max's Rotten Tomatoes think?
That's a great question. I haven't checked the Rotten Tomatoes on it, but like, and yeah, like I said, this is IMDb. This is people like us.
IMDb is more
rating.
Trustworthy than
I think so too, because you get the more volume with IMDb usually.
Yeah, here we go. Rotten Tomatoes right now. It doesn't say how many episodes, but I'm assuming 4 because I believe that's what everyone was rating it on for like all the early release stuff.
For the early release stuff, yeah.
Yeah, right now it's sitting at a 94%. Audience rating a 91. People love the show. People love the show.
Completely out of their minds. Yeah,
it's a 5. It's mid. It's about as mid as you can get.
I would love to see what television show they consider a 10 if this is a 5.
Yeah,
I'd love to see their scale of where things are at.
Yeah, it's something else, man. They'll change their scores once the final 4 episodes come out. They'll be like, "Oh, this show is actually incredible!
Actually
I can't believe they tied all this up. This is a 9.5."
Yeah, after people get outraged about it, yeah, for sure.
Yeah, it's very easy to just be wrong on the internet and just be like, actually, I think it's this now.
But they're just wrong really loud is the thing, you know.
Well, yeah, because they're one of the biggest sources out there to be wrong or right.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, whatever. It
Last
sucks.
thing I want to talk about with the Penguin, Robbie, is so you're a big Batman guy, you're a big DC guy.
Yeah.
Obviously, we mentioned previously that there's been a lot of differences taken. Like this feels, and it is actually confirmed by James Gunn that this is like an Elseworlds like universe.
Yes.
This
Yeah.
is not like the main DC continuity,
Yeah.
whatever, of
Yeah.
James Gunn's DCU. And it feels like it, but it doesn't feel bad. So, as a DC Batman guy, what have been your thoughts about how they're like changing the continuity from, or the comic book accuracy, as us
Uh,
comic book nerds like to say?
so there's a lot like there in this show in particular. There's so much good about the mob boss that we have never gotten in any other DC property outside of the Batman. Um, I would say it's unfortunate that this isn't part of the grand idea for the DC EU or whatever they want to call it now. Like that sucks. And there's no way they can combine it because I think James Gunn's universe is going to be much different than this.
Mhm.
And I don't know how you can make those mesh. And I don't
Right.
know if he's interested in doing multiverse stuff because we've seen like Marvel's like the multiverse stuff is cool as an idea, but if done wrong, like it really messes people up.
Right.
So that's why DC and WB is in such a weird spot. Like they put out the Joker, which none of us saw, Joker 2, and apparently it's one of the worst movies of all time. Like Madam Web has a higher score than it.
I'd like to
Like
see IGN's rating of Joker 2. That's what I'd like to see.
that's good. That's good. That's a good
Because
question.
like everybody has been saying that that's a horrible movie. Rotten Tomatoes has it at like a 30% on
Yeah.
both critic and audience score.
Oh, good. Good to know. Joker 2 also a 5.
Oh. Joker 2 is the same as the Penguin,
It's the
guys,
same as
according
the
to
Penguin.
IGN.
The
It's the same.
Penguin and Joker 2, same exact score. Mediocre.
They're basically the same properties.
Yeah,
Basically the same, according to
pick
IGN.
one.
Yeah.
Jeez, they're insane.
So,
No, I don't. It's weird. I don't know how I feel. It's like, can we? It's just it shows a lack of planning by WB. And they'll just be like, oh, look, we have all these different properties and they're in all these different universes. When we expect the general public to get it, which they don't, because we sometimes don't get it, and we freaking cover this stuff. Like the general public has no freaking clue. You're
right.
confusing people, like, and that's why
The
Marvel and Disney made the right choice. Like it's like, okay, we finally have like Deadpool and Wolverine. We can't make another universe. We're
Right.
going to combine them somehow. We're going to make this work. Same thing. Like I assume Venom is going to come over or whatever they're doing with that stuff. It's like they're going to make it work. That you can't just have multiple storylines and universes that are their own thing. It's just it's I don't know. It's a mess, but hopefully it turns into a beautiful mess. I hope.
Yeah. I mean, the caveat with that is like if the movies are good enough, it's not going to matter because people are going to go
For
see
sure.
them anyways.
Absolutely.
Which is the case with the Batman. Like the Batman
Yeah.
was just a good
It's
movie.
so good.
It was just
It
good.
was so good that
So
everyone's like,
like yeah.
I accept this.
So
Yeah.
the average person that's not like us, that's not like, geeking out us about this stuff, they're still going to go to that movie and be like, "Oh, that was a good movie." Like I'm
Right.
still kind of maybe a little confused about how that all fits in with everything else, if it even does, but it was a good movie, so whatever. But like
And
if
it-
you get
yeah.
the DC messes that we had with the DCEU and you're still trying to like connect
Piece
it
it
or
all
not
together,
connect
yeah.
it or whatever, then that's where you lose people.
I'm
That's where you're
making
like,
3
okay.
puzzles and they're all connected to the same thing, but they're not the same puzzle. Like, but they all have
Yeah.
pieces from each other, but different
Gosh.
puzzles. Like it's like, yeah, that's a good point. If it works, if you make a good product, people won't care.
Which I mean, like it's been proven with the Batman and now the Penguin. Like these are just good properties. Like this is
Yeah.
good enough
Matt
that people are going to
Reeves
watch
has
this.
a really cool little universe.
Yeah, he does.
And I would assume my assumption, and I have not looked to see like when the Batman 2 is supposed to come out. But I would assume that would be the end of Batman, and that would be the end of Matt Reeves' little story.
Mhm.
I don't see them doing a third, because then like James Gunn's DC is going to start taking off.
Right.
Because I believe Superman. If I had to look, I would guess Superman and the
Superman's coming
Batman
out
2
next
are.
summer.
Yeah, like I would have assumed those things are coming out very close to each other. And James Gunn being in charge of all that's probably like, hey, we need to probably just like Matt Reeves, if you can tie this up, let's tie it up. Like if
Right.
you can tie it up in this movie, let's tie it up. Unless you have like unless it would have to be one hell of a story for him to be like, I need 2 more movies and then
Right.
I'm done. Like
Yeah.
make it another Batman trilogy, which we like. We like Batman trilogies.
Mhm.
If you can make it a good trilogy and then just end it, cool. And then hopefully James Gunn's DC is taking off by then. But
Right.
it,
Yeah.
it
I
doesn't
think
need to
running
keep going.
concurrently would be
Yes,
confusing
is
for
the wrong idea.
people.
Yeah.
Right. But it also does seem like this is a very dark, realistic version of a Batman universe or whatever, and James Gunn's DC
We
is
already know that
probably going to
James
be
Gunn's
different,
DC
right?
isn't.
Yeah,
We already know because we already have Green Lantern like casted.
right.
We
It's
have
going to
freaking
be
Crypto.
fantastical. You're going to
It's
bring
gonna
in
be
cosmic
very.
elements.
It's
You
gonna be
know,
very comic booky,
yeah,
and while Batman is like a comic book, this is a very realistic type of look on it. So it won't mesh together.
yeah. Feel you on that. Thank you for those thoughts on the
Hey,
Penguin
you're welcome.
Universe. If you guys have any thoughts, make sure to hit us up on social media. One last thing to talk about tonight, Robbie, and it's a pretty big
Mhm.
one. It
It is a
is
big one.
the Rings of Power.
It's large and it's a thing.
It's large and not quite in charge. I was going to say in charge, but I don't know if
It's
I could
out
really
there.
say that. It's
It's
out
in the
there. It is
ether
a
of
thing.
stuff.
Lord of the Rings, Rings of Power season 2 premiered this summer, and it's probably been, oh gosh, has it been a month? It's been like 2 weeks, 2.5
It's been like
weeks
2
or
weeks
something.
since the finale. Yeah, it hasn't
Yes,
been that long.
since the finale. So it's been a little bit, but as
Sure.
a fellow Lord of the Rings fan, I felt like I needed to save this for when you were going to be on the podcast. We could talk about
Absolutely.
it. So this is our official spoiler warning for Rings of Power season 2.
This is
Prepare yourself.
an Infinity Bros
Prepare yourself.
spoiler warning.
Let's start with season 1. Like, what did you think about season 1 and coming into season 2? Like, where were you at with that?
Season 1 was okay. I don't remember what I rated it. That's always the iffy thing when we do ratings. It's like sometimes we just make up ratings. What? No, we don't. We have
Of course
we have
not.
a very rigid rating system, and that's why it's so hard to remember what ratings we gave things. I want to say I probably gave it like a 4.5. There's some redeeming qualities. Being in the world of Lord of the Rings gives it an edge above other series of the type. The cliffhanger or reveal at the end of season 1 sparked some interest. There's good things. They were I think they were doing okay. But I would also say I was not hyped to like continue this story. Like I it would have been one of those like they canceled Rings of, like you see a post and they cancel Rings of Power and you go, "Oh, okay."
Yeah.
Kind of sucks that we're losing a Lord of the Rings story, but I kind of get it. Like so like I enjoyed it. I love everything Lord of the Rings, and as do you, and just being able to be in that world for longer always feels like a treat. um when it's a little watered down and the story isn't just ripped from Tolkien's mind, there's some things that are left out that we don't quite have. So it's just it's as IGN would say, mediocre.
Oh man. That's
Yeah,
the new standard of what we're comparing things to.
IGN.
Is going to IGN and see what they rate
I'm looking
things.
up IGN Rings of Power.
There
I'm
you
doing
go.
it right
Please,
now.
please do.
Oh my
I'm
gosh.
I'm
Ugh.
on the same. Wait. What was it? Is it
Do you want to
worse?
know? Rings
Yes,
of
please.
Power, season 1. Just season 1. They gave it an 8.
What
So
is
you would say
this?
Rings of
What
Power
is
season
this?
1 is better than Penguin. They
guess
also gave
that's
Rings of
what they
Power
say.
season 2. Where's the rating? I believe it was said 6. Yeah, gave it a 6.
6.
6. So
Interesting.
on our Penguin scale is a bad score.
Yeah.
Like, because Penguin's much better than a 5. It would be very hard to me, like, not getting into spoilers, but I would not. This is nowhere near as good as the Penguin.
No,
Um,
I would not. I would agree with that. I don't think it's up
so
there
they gave
either.
it a 6, which might be actually what it should have.
It's just, it's
A 6
fascinating.
is a 6
Studies
or a
need to be
7.
done
A 6
on
studies need to be done.
IGN.
6 or 7 isn't actually. I would say that if we had a 10-point scale, which we don't because we have a 6-point scale. But a 6 or a 7 feels right.
Yeah, that actually feels accurate. But like season 1 being an 8 as compared
That's
to
wild.
Penguin as a
Being
5.
a 5. Yeah, it's wild.
That is fascinating to me.
Yeah, sorry.
But anyways, yeah, season 1, I did like it. I think the one thing they did really well is the thing that I was worried about was, how do you make a series feel like it's in the Lord of the Rings universe,
Yes.
And I think they actually did a pretty dang good job of that. Like, the production level is very high. It feels very nice. It feels good to be in that universe again, like you were saying.
Mm-hmm.
But the story is kind of where I got caught up on a little bit in season 1. I think I did rate it relatively high. Like, I think it was a 5 to me, and I'd still hold with that. I still think it's good enough. Whereas, in comparison, since we're already comparing it to the Penguin, like, the Penguin makes me want to watch the next episode.
Yes.
I don't think I ever felt that with season 1 or 2 of Rings of
No.
Power, which is a
No.
little sad. Like,
Only
I
in-
didn't get
for-
done watching an episode and being like, I need to continue watching.
The
Like, I
only
need to
time I
get the
felt
next
that in
one.
season 2 was the second to last episode.
Right. Yeah, they did
Like,
ramp it up the last couple
Yeah, the
episodes.
last 2
for sure.
episodes, I would say, and I wouldn't say this is season 2 is like getting into season 2 here. I would say season 2 is terrible, but the last 2 episodes saved the entire season. I feel like, from being like a massive disappointment.
I agree with you because, and we're gonna get into this, kind of a little bit more extensively here, but like, the first 4 episodes are really slow moving. They're not bad. It's still good acting. There's good dialogue. It's just a lot of story building, which is not a bad thing if you can keep everybody engaged with like a little sprinkle of action here and there, and like, things that make us open our eyes really wide. I just don't know if they had enough of that to really keep my interest, driving forward. It was fine. It was good. It wasn't like bad. I would never say seasons 1 or 2 any of it was bad, but it just it just was like, oh, okay, cool, like, great, like, it's a good show.
Like, we're
Not
moving
looking
on.
moving on.
It's
That's
kind of
the
always,
vibe.
and maybe just because we're old, but I found myself falling asleep a lot through the first 6 episodes of this thing.
Oh, man,
and that's partially my fault, because I watched it like later at night after I've gotten the kids to bed, and it's like 9 o'clock. I'm like, oh, put this on. But like, all these episodes do not have to be an hour long. Like, there's a lot that they could cut to make these 40-minute episodes, some of them. And probably make it a much better watch, just to be brutally honest. Like, and like you said, I wouldn't say it's bad. There's just a lot of slow moving pieces that they're trying to set up for hopefully a big reveal or a big payoff later down in the series. And yeah, it's just slow. It's just it started like we talked about the slow burn for Penguin. That was a good flame. This was a slow burn that you're kind of like, is this burn gonna die?
You're like waiting for it to get bigger, and you're just like,
like, it might be getting smaller. Like, it's just it's that kind of feeling, man.
Yeah. I will say, so season 1 I think was good, and they had a little bit better pacing of the storyline, maybe, because
I would
now
say I enjoyed season 1 more.
Now we've got so many storylines, and like, you'll go a couple episodes before getting back to a storyline sometimes. Like, we've got like the Numenor thing going on. We've got the halflings and the stranger, which now we know is Gandalf. We've got
What? No one knew that.
shocker.
Shocking.
Adar
Would have
and
been way
his
cooler
orky
if it was
stuff.
Saruman.
Yeah, and then all the elf stuff. Like, there's so many storylines going on, and sometimes we make it a whole episode or two before we get the next part of the story for that
Yeah.
other thing. And so, like, there's interesting stuff happening, but then you're like, oh shoot, I almost forgot like where we were with that
Right,
other
you forget like,
storyline.
wait, what are we doing over there?
Yeah, so it was
We
just
did
a
get Tom
lot to
Bombadil,
bring
and that
together.
saved the entire series.
That was fascinating, and I really liked that part of it, honestly. And his whole interaction with Gandalf, I that was part of the series that maybe wasn't like the most exciting or anything, but it made me almost feel nostalgic for Lord of the Rings.
Yes.
Like, even though we hadn't seen Tom Bombadil in the Peter Jackson's Lord of the Rings
they robbed
trilogy,
it from us.
yeah,
They
they
filmed
robbed
it.
us.
They have
Like,
it.
I remember reading The Hobbit. Like, The Hobbit is the book that I've read the most in my life. I've read it probably 10 plus times. And favorite book of all time. Besides the Bible, I guess, and I can throw the Bible
You said
in
it.
there, but like,
You said it. The
fictional
Hobbit,
book.
favorite book of all time. The Bible number 2.
The Bible number 2. But yeah, The
This
Hobbit,
guy
great
doesn't
book.
like it.
Absolutely love it. Tom Bombadil, like, incredible parts of that, and
He's so
the Lord of
good.
the Rings. Like, he's just amazing.
Yeah.
So I love that they incorporated him, and I was a little worried about that coming into it. I was like, because they showed some images and confirmed that Tom Bombadil was in the season before the season premiered, and we're like, oh wow, this could like sink the season or it could save it. And I think it definitely tipped the scales on the save part of it, because I really enjoyed everything that he was a part of. He kind of kept that like wistful, like, vibe throughout the series.
I
Exactly what I was expecting. So
Tom Bombadil's always been here.
he's
What?
always been here.
What do you mean? I was here
I
before the
love-
trees and
yeah.
before the wind. What do you mean?
It was great. It was great. Yeah, that was a great
So
part
good.
of it. I did like the Celebrimbor ring part, and so the last like 3 episodes were the kind of the big one where we had Sauron like basically manipulating Celebrimbor into making these
Great
rings.
deceiver.
Great deceiver. And like I said, those last 3 episodes are, I mean, they do really save this season, because they are fun to watch. They're fun to watch him kind of tangling everybody into his web, and like literally like being the great deceiver and manipulating everybody,
for everybody,
just gaslighting everybody majorly.
Yes, gaslampping everyone.
Gaslampping everyone.
I'm pretty sure that rat went across the floor. No.
No, yeah, you didn't say that. What are you talking about?
You have not slept very well.
Just master gaslamper, Sauron is. So fun to see that in the last 3 episodes. The Elrond and Galadriel storyline, I don't know, man.
I really, really, really don't like the Elrond actor. He is not. I don't like him. I don't like him as an actor, and his portrayal of Elrond. And I also really don't like Gil-galad's actor and portrayal of Gil-galad.
I'm with you on Gil-galad.
I do not get the gosh, who plays Elrond in Lord of the Rings? The name
Hugo Weaving.
Yes, I do not get that over. I'm gonna say it again. That overpowering aura.
Yeah.
Of an elf
aura,
elder,
sure.
like
he's got
oh it. Yeah, he's got it, man. Like
Elrond, you just
Elrond in Lord of the Rings is just like, that guy is a badass.
Yeah. You
and
look at
I
him,
respect
and you
him.
can just tell that he's wise, right? Like, but
you
look at Elrond, and granted, like, this is whatever this is. This the third age or the second? I don't remember the timeline.
It's 3,000-4,000 years before the ring
so,
story.
like, granted, Elrond has time to get more wise, per se, whatever. Same with Galadriel, honestly. But Gil-galad, that guy bugs me, because, like, as a high king of the elves or whatever, dude just seems way too arrogant to be like a high king. And I'm just like, I don't dig that guy.
Not good at all what they've done with Gil-galad. That honestly, if I had to say one of the most disappointing things, it's probably how the elves have been portrayed. Because they seem human. Like
Yeah.
the elves, how
Yeah.
the elves act in Lord of the Rings, the movies, it feels like they all act this different way.
Right.
They act like I would expect an elf in a fantasy world to
And
act,
that's right. And
where
that's
these
how
guys act like humans.
right. And that's how Tolkien portrays him in his books too. Like they're this like higher species. Like they
Yes,
are way above everybody else in Middle Earth.
they're
Like that's
wiser, they're
literally how he talks.
smarter. They don't show the emotions that we do.
Yeah.
Like they're better than us, and they know it. Like
That's a great way to put it though. Like they're humanizing elves and
yeah,
making them just like have, problem. Obviously the elves had problems, but like
for sure,
they
yeah.
were in a upper echelon of Middle Earthen society,
Mhm.
this whole like throughout all of the ages. And then now we're getting this portrayal of them that's like, oh yeah, they're basically the same as all these
They're
humans, and
like the
it doesn't
humans,
feel
yeah.
right. Yeah, it
They're
doesn't feel right.
arguing, bickering like the humans do. Like it doesn't feel like Elrond always felt like he was calculated in everything he did, and like the thing is always the slow to speech, right?
Mm,
Like
yeah,
just like sit and listen, but they're very fast to talk, and it just doesn't feel. And maybe that's it. Maybe it's just that feeling isn't there with the elves, and we spend a lot of time with the elves in this series.
yeah, right.
So I don't know.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you on that. So speaking of the different races in Middle Earth here, we haven't even talked about Prince Durin and
Yeah,
the dwarves at all. I think
yeah,
that's a
freaking
really fun part of this series and
a
this.
good. That was one of the good side
Right.
stories.
Yeah. The whole like, King Durin gets
Yes.
overtaken by one of the dwarven rings of power. Kind of goes like, dwarven like gold hungry basically.
Yeah. What
And
did they call
that's
it in what did they call it in the Hobbit?
yeah, they had a word for it, didn't they? Yeah,
I'm
I'm
blanking
blanking
on it
on it,
too.
but I'm thinking of the like I'm trying to think of the movie what they called it too.
Yeah,
Gold.
they're
I don't remember. We'll have to look that up.
I know what you're saying. Yeah.
But
Someone out
like,
there will know what we're
yeah,
saying.
I agree with you. I think this is the most fun storylines, and uh, yeah, Prince Durin, King Durin. At the end, King Durin like
Oh
taking
my
off the ring
gosh,
and
dude.
going to
Oh my gosh,
battle the
dude.
Balrog. Oh, that
That was
was so
awesome.
cool.
One of the
Oh my
like
gosh.
one of the top maybe perhaps a top 10 Lord of the Rings in media scenes. That was a good
Dude,
freaking scene,
that
man.
shot of him like,
Yeah,
jumping
with the
at him
freaking
with his
battle axe.
axe, that
Yeah.
was peak Star Wars
Yeah.
or Star Wars peak. That
Star
was
Wars.
peak Lord of the
Peak
Rings,
Star
I think.
Wars.
Yeah.
That was cool.
If it were Star Wars, it'd be peak Star Wars moment too.
ABP.
But
And that's the toughest thing that I feel like this series had, and also Lord of the Rings has, and the amount of times I've watched it, and like, and the more you watch it, the more you notice like the little flaws. Like dwarves, it's hard to make dwarves look awesome.
yeah.
It's hard to make short, stocky dudes fighting look good. Like,
Yeah.
and they still struggle with that a little bit here because you're just like, when are they gonna fight? When are they gonna fight? Oh, they're fighting. Oh, that doesn't. That's not what I pictured. I don't like this anymore. Never mind.
Never mind. Yeah. No, but it was sweet to see him go like to battle
Yeah, that was
against the
sweet.
Balrog. That was really
That was
fun.
sweet.
Next race, we have the Numenor like man storyline with Isildur
Yeah.
and his dad, what's Elendil, and the
Elendil.
queen Pharazôn taking over the kingship in Numenor.
Yeah.
Honestly, like I kind of liked how it was going in the beginning, and then I just
So
was like,
boring.
man,
It's so boring.
none of this seems like it's relevant to anything else going on in
It's
Middle
only
Earth.
relevant. The only reason why it's relevant is because I saw a rumor that Rings of Power wants to do like 7 seasons. So
Really?
yes. So the assumption that I'm making is that they want to end it with Isildur cutting off Sauron's ring.
That's what I was going to mention is like I think they're building to that being like the last
If they
part
could build
of it.
if golly, I really don't think they're going to get there.
They would have to
I
do some if they want to do 8 whole seasons. Oh gosh. How are they going to fill 8
and
seasons with
maybe they won't. Maybe they'll be like
oh
Amazon's gonna
gosh.
be like, hey, wrap it up because
They got
season
right.
2
They
didn't
got to
do
do a
really
time
good.
jump or something
Yeah.
in there somewhere because Isildur. I mean, I don't mind him. Like actor plays him well, but like
It's
the
fine.
whole Numenor thing is like I don't
It's a
care. I
drag
mean,
and it's boring. Yeah, we don't care.
besides the real snotty dude that's like ordering people around and stuff, like hate that
Yeah,
guy. He does a really good job of being
making you
a
hate him. Yeah,
snotty, like makes you hate him type of actor.
sure.
uh Besides that, I just don't care about that storyline anymore. It would be cool to
Honestly, you
see
could like,
Isildur battle and like cut off Sauron's finger and the
but
ring
that's
and
the
stuff,
thing.
but
Like, you could just if you cut out that entire storyline until like you absolutely needed to introduce Isildur before that fight, you
sure.
could.
Yeah.
Like, you could introduce Isildur season 4 and like start the season with him and be like, this is Isildur, like,
Yeah.
and then build from there.
I
But
kind of
like,
get what they're going for because like
it's
they,
part of the
you know,
story.
and
It's part of the story.
in Tolkien lore, the fall of Numenor is like a huge like event in Middle Earth.
Yes. Yeah,
So
yeah,
I
yeah.
think that's why they included that storyline, but like man, I'm just not interested in it right now.
I
So
don't think anyone is.
little bit of a bummer that that's the thing. And then we talked about Tom Bombadil already, but like going back to the Harfoots and the what are the other ones that were introduced in this season? The
Harfoots and the
Stuccos? No, not the Stuccos.
yeah, no, it's something like that.
Something
It's something
something
like
like
that.
that.
Yeah.
But like the new race of they're not a new race. The other
There's
halflings
some
that
other
have
hobbits.
holes in the ground.
They're in a
Foreshadowing to
hole in the ground.
yeah,
In
foreshadowing
holes
to
in a ground.
them probably moving to the Shire and settling down there. But uh another storyline that like I don't care too much about. I didn't really care about them in
I
season
enjoy it
1 that
more
much.
than the Numenor, because I like hobbits
True.
and I like what they're about. But
Yeah.
that yeah,
But the fact
that's
that they
only a
have
story to
Gandalf
move
with
on.
them,
Right. That story is only there to move this narrative for Gandalf, like,
right? And
and
that's
to build the why Gandalf cares about hobbits so much.
yeah, right. And I think that's a good way to, introduce him. And then obviously he finds his name in the last episode. Gandalf finds his staff. Is kind of a cool thing how they wrapped up that storyline with like, you almost got the. I mean, they obviously built it up as an impression of Tom Bombadil like giving Gandalf a choice, like, hey, find your staff or save your friends. Like that's your
Yeah.
option. He goes to save his friends, and then he finds a staff, and like Gandalf's like, "Oh, that was the plan all along." So, which is like, I mean, it was like kind of predictable, like
Yeah.
when after you see it, but it was a cool way to wrap up that storyline, and I love that he came
Yeah.
back and we got another interaction with Tom Bombadil, and
Old
that's
Tommy
when we
boy.
learned again, old Tommy boy, just
No
just
Goldberry
a
though. That's a
no.
disappointment.
They
Yeah.
mentioned her.
No, and one he goes, "Who?
Yeah.
What are you talking about? What, I know
What are you talking about? I don't know
But
what
I
you're
heard a
talking
woman. Nope, no woman here.
about.
Fire.
I love how mysterious he is, but he doesn't even care at all. He's just like,
It's just for fun
whatever.
for him. Yeah, he's
Love
just
it.
a bored like deity.
Yeah. So, okay. Last thing I want to kind of bring up here. I'm a big fan of the Shadow of Mordor like video games. Celebrimbor is a big part of those video games because he's the like
Okay.
spirit that uh basically takes over the ranger that's I don't even remember the ranger's name in that series, but like
I've not played those games.
oh, they're great, dude. You got to
Yeah,
play
I know. I
those.
just never played
But
them. Yeah.
but Celebrimbor is actually the spirit that like takes over his body and like helps him do all these like
Oh,
cool like moves and stuff like that.
okay.
And it's not like a canon story. They kind of go off on their own doing things,
Sure.
but like it's so funny because in this in like the Shadow of Mordor games, Celebrimbor is like this nasty like spirit, and he's just like angry at everything. And then you go to the Rings of Power, and he's like this uppity like high class elf
Right.
that's like, just like happy all the time, and it's just such a
Well,
stark
I mean, it
contrast.
might make sense after the rings were already
And
made that he
that's what
would
I
be
was
a very angry person.
that's
Yeah.
what I was just gonna say is the last 3 episodes with basically Sauron driving him nuts and him
Yeah.
like going basically crazy, and at the same time like getting desperate, and
Yeah.
man, you could just see his mentality and his like life change before him in those last 3 episodes. And I actually, those last 3 episodes made me like him as a character so
Oh,
much
so
more,
much more. Yeah, for
because
sure.
before it was like, oh, this guy is just like arrogant, like,
Like
thinks he's
this
the
is
best
he's
thing
kind of
on
dumb
Middle
because
Earth.
Sauron keeps tricking him. Like, what are you doing?
Yeah, right. But
Like
in the end, he sticks it out and sticks it to Sauron, and oh, it's great.
yeah.
I loved his
I have a feeling
ending.
it's not going to work out very well for him.
Nah, probably not. But
The one thing I would say that bothered me a bit was the timing of things. So Sauron's tricking Celebrimbor in the tower while he's finishing the 9 rings, and what's his name, the general or whatever of the army of the orc army.
oh,
What's his name?
Adar, yeah,
Adar.
Yeah.
Adar is like at the gate destroying the city already. And like Sauron's like, you have to finish the rings. And he's like,
yeah,
I haven't even started the 9. And then it's like, it feels like an hour goes by. And he's like, I got them
right.
done. Here you go. And you're like,
Yeah,
I don't
like
think
you would think
I
that
don't
would
think you can make
take
these rings.
days or
This
weeks or
is
something
you
like
need a
that,
week or
right?
two for this at least, right? Like
Yeah,
like the timing of that bothered me. I know that's small potatoes, but those are the things like I start to notice a lot more in shows. I'm like, the timing of this doesn't work. Like someone should have like thought about
I
this.
had that same thought. It just is. It's kind of weird, but
It doesn't
whatever.
matter really.
You're
It's
right.
just
In the
like you
grand scheme
finish.
of things, it doesn't
Yeah,
matter,
it's like
but it still is like a
you
weird.
finish 9 rings of men in like a couple hours.
Yeah,
It's like
and like so the
that's some
real
crazy work.
timing of that is weird, but part of me was like, oh well, maybe because he's in this like weird fantasy that Sauron is like created in his mind, maybe
Mhm.
that like somehow like extends the time in in that like
Yeah,
period or whatever.
it's a
Yeah,
hyperbolic time
some
chamber, which my DBZ fans will get. Like also
hyperbolic time.
because my thought also went to like, does he not eat? Does he not pee?
No,
Does like what
no,
is
the
like
rings of power are
Sauron?
too important. He can't stop for that stuff.
Sauron has like jeez, Sauron is in control of his intestines and bladder. Like what
It's
is
pretty
happening?
impressive. Yeah.
And I don't know the ins and outs. Maybe elves don't have to eat that much. They probably don't, but
Maybe the elves probably don't poop. They probably don't poop.
that's too soiling for them. It evaporates. Their metabolism
Yeah.
probably just burns it off.
Yeah. They
Honestly,
just burn
would actually
everything.
that might make sense.
It might make sense. Yeah.
They eat like a
Or
piece of
they,
bread a week, and they're like, well, my metabolism
well,
just
yeah,
burned it
yeah.
off.
They
It
eat
just
some
gone.
lembas bread and they don't have to eat for the rest of the week.
Are we
So-
saying here on the podcast that elves don't have buttholes?
That's our thing, huh? Elves don't have buttholes.
Elves
They don't poop. Yeah.
You heard it here first.
It's
Elves
official.
do not have buttholes.
You heard it here first on the Infinity Bros.
I would assume they still have reproductive organs, but
yeah.
buttholes
They
do
to.
not.
Buttholes they don't have. No. Yeah.
No, it's too dirty.
I think that's
They've grown past them.
That's a great note to end on for the Infinity Bros podcast. Oh wow! Tell me. Oh, actually, you know what? We haven't rated it yet. What did you rate season 2, Robbie?
Oh, golly, without the last 2 or 3 episodes, this would have been like a 3. Those final episodes really tie things together. Makes me more excited for next season. I think I'll give it a 4.75. The last 3 episodes did a very good job of making me interested again. So as long as that keeps ramping up, I'm excited for next season.
Mm-hmm.
If next season comes out and it's a drag again for the first 4 episodes, I don't know. This series is gonna be a tough one. But yeah. I have hope. 4.75, slightly higher than what I would rate season 1.
I'm sticking with my 5 out of 6 from season 1. I think it was a solid season. Like we've already talked about, slow start. but it did really ramp it up in the last 3 episodes, and it's turned out pretty solid. And again, I'm enjoying just the environment of being back in the Lord of the Rings universe.
Sure.
I think that's one thing they're doing a really good job with, even if they're not perfectly wrapping up every storyline and, you know, all that stuff. And this is one of those things where I'll rate it a 5 now, and maybe like a year from now I'll be like, yeah, that was a 4. It might not be as good as I'm thinking it is now, but like I'm still really enjoying being in this universe right now. So I'll give it a 5 for now.
Honestly, I would watch a show if it was just hobbits, just like doing hobbit things.
Probably.
Yeah. Like I would like if it was hobbits, but like British baking show, but then they had like random drama that would come up, and it's like, did you hear about the Sackville Baggins? They took the Brandybuck's prize pig,
we need
and
an
they
HGTV show of like the Real Housewives of the Shire or something. That would be like amazing.
Lobelia Sackville Baggins is the number 1 character.
Oh my gosh, that would be
and make them shorts, just because they're short. Make them shorts. Make it like 15-minute episodes.
Great idea.
15-minute episodes. Like once a month we get an update. Like once a month it's just like we get these high quality updates.
I did not know I needed this, but here we are. All right. Well, thanks Robbie for joining me for stuff right up your wheelhouse. This is stuff that you're excited about, so it makes me more excited about it too.
And next week we'll talk about Magic the Gathering for 3 hours.
You're gonna have to get Jared for that one.
You can come.
We'll see. Anyways, thank you, Infinity Bros Universe, for joining us today. Wherever you're listening, however you're listening, thank you so much for making us a part of your podcast experience. You can check us out at theinfinitybros.com. Tell us what you thought of the Penguin or Lord of the Rings, Rings of Power on our social media. You can email us at infinitybrospodcast@gmail.com. We love you 2000.
Bye.
Thanks for tuning in to the Infinity Bros podcast. You can find the Infinity Bros on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, Twitch, and YouTube at the Infinity Bros. You can also check out our website at theinfinitybros.com for links, reviews, and sweet merch. Feel free to send listener feedback via social media or email at infinitybrospodcast@gmail.com.